And we continue with Chapter 3, Notes on the Psychology of Enjoyment. Joe Turner, LP title. And the blues'll make you happy too. For a man to be continually in pleasure, he must have the faculties of pleasure awake. To have a monotony of pleasure is still pleasant. Benjamin Paul Blood. It has often been pointed out that the blues distinguishes itself from numerous other song and folk song forms by its predilection for first-person presentation. The blues is indeed a self-centered music, highly personalized, wherein the effects of everyday life are recounted in terms of the singer's reactions. The unique personal level of this presentation, however, intensifies the appeal of the blues to its audience as a whole, far from weakening the bonds between the singer and his audience. The highly personalized nature of the blues seems only to strengthen them. In the blues, this particular sort of self-centered presentation is well known for its capacity to present us with the most uncluttered descriptions of human life. Yet, in concentrating our attention on the nature of such descriptions, it becomes clear that one of the intrinsic qualities of the blues, especially the lyrics, and in a sense one that pervades all levels of interpretation, is that it remains close to its instinctual sources, relatively unalienated, and unashamedly primitive. Wrath will no doubt be engendered in some circles by the introduction of the last term, but the time has come for us to divorce the word primitive from the pejorative connotations imposed on it by Puritans and bourgeoisie apologists, and restore to it some measure of its original vitality and grandeur. Whenever self-styled appreciators of great art and literature nominate the genre which we know as blues for membership in their sepulchre register, I know that word, whatever, we are treated to the most preposterous redefinings, the most ludicrous hedgings, indeed, all the most crass bourgeoisie ideological manipulations contrived for the purpose of avoiding a confrontation with the notion of the primitive. As an example, we may cite Sidney Finkelstein's Jazz, a people's music from 1948. In his feeble attempt to defend jazz against the charge that it is a primitive music, Finkelstein first suggests that the word primitive itself, of course, is much misused as referring to tribal men. Tribal man was a very great creator, etc. It is Finkelstein who finds the concept primitive opposed to the concept of creativity. 2, it is he, and those who share his rigid formalism, that the contradiction exists, further to counter the charge that jazz springs directly from the subconscious. Certainly a rather vulgar charge and worthy of counterattack. He can only meekly reply, Jazz is a flow of emotion in music, guided by, oh Lordy. Jazz is a flow of emotion in music, guided by the most conscious skill, taste, artistry, and intelligence. It remains to be seen whether by ignoring just what is being guided, we have exceedingly poor dialects, or simply begging the question. In the case of Finkelstein, whose radical pretensions are reducibly to populist platitudes, it is probably both. In any case, his approach exemplifies the nature of the limitations imposed on us by repressive class structure terminology. No doubt, the general charge which with he hoped to refute was the view that the American black was a savage and that his music was worthless. His refutation, however, unfortunately, obscured the vitality, the passion, and the freedom implicit in the concept of primitive. Needless to say, much of the charm, elegance, power, and appeal of the blues is inextricably associated with this concept, and this very association has evoked from the bourgeoisie critics not only scorn, but ceaseless attempts to separate such vital and insistent creative activities from those forms of art to which the sheltered bourgeoisie is accustomed. Told you there's a lot of words on these pages. Thanks for being with me. Relevant here are the psychoanalyst Heinz Kohut comments on primitive rhythmic impulses in music from 1957. The weaker the aesthetic disguise of such rhythmic experiences, the less artistic becomes the music, as, for example, in some forms of jazz, one might also question the artistic value of Ravel's popular bolero, etc. Perhaps the key words here are artistic and popular, and the unspoken sophisticated. What is suggested as a psychoanalytic fact is really only the author's preference for maintaining the greatest possible distance between the concept of artistry and the concept of popularity. For, of course, the relationship between aesthetic disguise and artistic achievement is not nearly as direct or as simple as Kohut suggests. In this connection, the works of the psychoanalyst Winnicott from 71 and Fairbairn from 38 are illuminating. The latter suggests that anything made for fun is a work of art. To fail to see the complexity of this issue is not only to fail to clarify the appeal to those creative activities which are genuinely artistic and popular, but is also to contribute to the tendency to reserve the word art only for those cultural achievements which are not popular. One might suggest that the proximity of blues to its instinctual sources makes it attractive to those people who have not become far removed from their own instincts. Similarly, the revulsion for the blues felt by the more sophisticated art lover is explainable in terms of the aesthetic disguise needed by the latter. This description would doubtless please the complacent art lover, but let us rephrase it and suggest that the black people who enjoy blues do so by virtue of the fact that they have not lost touch with their innermost needs and desires, whereas the art lovers who find blues repulsive do so because of repression. Further, it should be made clear that the desire for aesthetic disguise, which reaches such a frenzied pitch in the art enthusiasts, and which passes itself off as sophistication, is generally only a reflection of a specific and extreme form of alienation. Excuse me, Lord. Given this, we can see that part of the attractiveness of the blues is that it is indeed a relatively unalienated form of expression. In a sense, unalienated becomes a synonym for primitive, and this offers a key to the fundamental revaluation of the blues, and above all assists our grasp of the level of the mind on which the blues operates so distinctively. The whole debate, of course, raged and subsided long ago over the vast range of productions, rather flippantly subsumed under the rubric primitive art. Former generations looked on these fetishes, masks, costumes, totem poles, spears, drums, etc., merely as ethnological curiosities, artifacts of interest only to specialists in backward cultures. Frequently, they were regarded as ugly, crude, obscene, childish, etc. It was the Cubist painters, above all Picasso and Braque, who were the first in Western civilization to recognize the imaginative power of many of these works, though they focus primarily on the purely formal values of certain African sculptures. Only with surrealism did primitive art become a decisive influence, properly esteemed for its extraordinary, magical, and illuminating capacity, and its subversion of traditional European values. It is significantly, though rarely remarked, that the very first exhibition at the Surrealist Gallery in Paris in 1925 featured the works of Man Ray, surrounded by primitive carvings from Oceania. Today, the battle over primitive art is over, resulting in a more or less complete vindication of the Surrealists' point of view. It is thus only appropriate that the Surrealists should also be the first to champion the singularly exalting, imaginative qualities of another realm of primitivism, the blues. Kohut, 1957, provides us with a great service when he observes that words and their meanings are comparatively superficial and related to the secondary process, tone. He continues, is a more primitive quality and a more related to primary process activity. We are reminded once again that it is the tone of the blues, the way they are played and sung, rather than the words themselves, that establishes the song's definitive credentials most clearly. Thus, a blues song can be distinguished from a non-blues by the way in which the almost indefinable manner of the performance relates to the primary process functioning. The words become secondary elaboration. The well-known inability to be articulate in this manner, the constant resorting to vague criteria like funky and soul, all suggest that we are still incapable of describing, in secondary process terms, words, the nature of our primary process response to the blues. While it would be futile to suggest a single source from which the blue tones of the blues singer draw their almost indescribable attractiveness, we can speculate that at least some decisive contributions to the force of appeal in the blues can be found in the listener's infancy. Perhaps the soothing voice of the parents, or more likely the infant's own crying, the crying as symptomatic of a painful state, produces pleasure in the listener, insofar as it can be identified with from afar. Thus, the aesthetic disguise operates in such a way that painful emotions can be recalled and mastered when listening to the blues. The aesthetic illusion maintaining the distance necessary for mastery. That was all one sentence and it started on the other page, but I'm going to read it again. Thanks again for being with me. It's getting a little toasty here, so if we get cut off, I just wanted to say I appreciate you. Okay, I'm going to have a drink too, so I can really get stingy. Okay, here we go. While it would be futile to suggest a single source from which the blue tones of the blues singer draw their most indescribable attractiveness, we can speculate that at least some decisive contributions to the force of appeal in the blues can be found in the listener's infancy. Perhaps the soothing voice of the parents, or more likely, the infant's own crying. The crying, as symptomatic of a painful state, produces pleasure in the listener insofar as it can be identified with from afar. Thus, the aesthetic disguise operates in such a way that painful emotions can be recalled and mastered while listening to the blues. The aesthetic illusion maintaining the distance necessary for mastery. As speculative as this may seem, the hypothesis is strengthened when we recall that the word cry is one of the most common terms used to describe the manner in which the blues are sung. Indeed, it is not our unconscious recollection of that period of our infancy, so aptly described by Ferenczi as the period of omnipotence by the help of magic gestures, when we had only to signal and our every need was granted. It is not that period that is revived in the demands. Is it not that period that is revived in the demands of the woman about whom Johnny Shines sang? My baby gets unruly. She thinks she can stop a train. Hold up her hand. Stop the lightning and the rain. That was says Black Panther, unissued version. As I said earlier, there will be few contributions that we can make to clarify the nature of the specifically musical appeal of the blues. Most of this study will concentrate on the lyrics, but before discussing the lyrics of the blues and that quality of sadness and loneliness which seems so irrevocably bound to them, it should be pointed out that the lyrics themselves by no means deal exclusively with such a restricted scope of emotional categories. The blues are often joyous, assertive, aggressive, proud, happy, and optimistic. Here's something written by Alex Moore. Looks like it's West Texas woman. I met a woman in West Texas. She had been left out there all alone. ×2. I found her blank cattle crossing where I wasn't even known. She fell for me, a raggedy stranger, standing in the drizzling rain. ×2. She said, Daddy, I'll follow you, though I don't know your name. We snuggled closely together, muddy water around our feet. No place to call home, wet, hungry, no place to eat. She said, I care for you, Daddy, but I love no man better than I do myself. ×2. But I have a mind to care, a heart to love like anyone else. The wolves howled till midnight. Wild ox moaned till day. ×2. The man in the moon looked down on us, but had nothing to say. Here's another one by P.D. Wheatstraw, False-Hearted Woman. May bad luck overtake you, pile up on you in a heap. May bad luck overtake you, pile up on you in a heap. Well, you are nothing but a crook. May around you, now you know, death may creep. All right, I'm gonna try to figure out a way to read this, because anytime I say ×2, then I'm supposed to say that twice. But when I do that, it sounds like I'm, like a skipping record or something. Like something's gone wrong. We'll see. We'll make it happen. I feel like chopping it, chips flying everywhere. I feel like chopping, chips flying everywhere. Charlie Patton, Down the Dirt Road Blues. And the next. You'll never get away now, baby, and all my worries are gone. You'll never get away now, baby, and all my worries are gone. You're going to wake up one of these mornings. You'll be rolling in my arms. Joe Turner, Wee Baby Blues. And the next one. I'm so tore up and bothered, I don't even trust myself. By Mercy D. Call the Asylum. The next. I wish I knew how much life was mine. That's by Lottie Beeman, Red River Blues. And the next. I did more for you than you understand. You can tell by the bullet holes, Mama, now, here is my hand. And that is by P.D. Wheatstraw, Ice and Snow Blues. And the next to the last one on this page. Be so glad when my buddy's dead and gone. Be so glad when my buddy's dead and gone. Lord, my buddy got something, now Lord, I like to own. And that was Mississippi Bracy. And his You Scolded Me and Drove Me from Your Door. All right, and the last one on this page. Now I received a letter, now from a girlfriend of mine today. Now I received a letter, now from a girlfriend of mine today. She said now she could do much better. Ooh, well, but I will always, in her way. Petey Wheatstraw, blues at my door. All this, one page and a half. All this is not to deny that there is a sadness in the blues, often in the lyrics themselves, but that we enjoy these songs seems to be taken for granted. And if one were to seek the nature of the psychic process whereby we enjoy listening to the blues, identification would be the most frequent answer. For we do identify with the singer of a song, yet it's easier to understand how we gain pleasure by identifying with an artist who is singing of his or her happiness. Or through identification, the singer's joy becomes ours. How is it that we gain definite pleasure by identifying with the singer's sadness? And do we gain the pleasure through identification in its psychoanalytic sense, or through other mechanisms? Clarification of this problem is essential if we are to understand how and why we enjoy the blues. A clinical definition of identification will help bring its function into focus. Abbreviating a definition of Schaeffer's from 1968, we can say, through identification, the subject represents as his own one or more characteristics of the subject. Schaeffer feels that the highest level of identification is generative empathy. Oh my Lord. In which the subject feels what the object feels, and yet above all, out of the self-interest as well as interest in the object, he maintains his individuality and perspective at the same time. As we are used to understanding identification as a process which contributes to superego formation and the resolution of conflicts associated with certain states of infancy, it should be pointed out that the process can take place during other periods of life at other levels. And may be based and may be based on the smallest characteristics of an object. It's literally one page. There's smoke around, and the longer that I stay in one place, the more that it gets to me. So, thanks for being with me. All right. With a better understanding of identification, we need now expand our discussion of the aesthetic illusion in order to enhance our grasp of the pleasure in the unpleasant. As another psychoanalyst, Ernst Chris, from 1952, has put it, Chris has done It's like the wind changed or something. Come on. Chris has done much to develop the theory of the aesthetic illusion, and his elaboration is is worth summarizing here. Okay, I give up. I don't like to hear me cough either, just to be fair. But it's like a whiff of smoke coming from somewhere. Here's the book I'm reading you. I greatly appreciate you. I will add this last little bit to the other chapter.